We're going to talk a little bit about something that we've raised before on the show, and it's something that's affecting a number of people. Now, we spoke to somebody not so long ago who was trapped in Bali. We spoke to another person who was trying to get out of South Africa back to Hong Kong for work. But today, we're going to talk to Dimitra Ashton, who's experienced a horrible repatriation flight back to South Africa. So imagine being stuck in a foreign city trying to get home, but you don't receive the right communication around what will happen. We've heard stories like this, but unfortunately for Jamie, she was stuck in a similar situation and wants to share her story this morning, not to name and shame those who made her scenario worse, but to remind us to not forget dignity for our fellow man and empathy for people who are stuck in tough situations. So Jamie visited Germany for an initial 6-week holiday. She runs her own business in Cape Town. She and her husband left for their holiday in February 2020. They were scheduled to get back to South Africa in mid-March, just as the initial 3-week lockdown was going to end. And while in Germany, they've had to make ends meet and stay with family, friends. It's been an absolute nightmare. Jamie, tell us what happened in the story from there.
Yeah, so it's been a really interesting adventure from there. Since being locked down in March, when the news first came through, it's essentially been a week delay where we keep finding out what's possibly happening a week or two from now in South Africa and needing to make plans on the other side from there.
How did it work in terms of flights? Because I heard it was a nightmare just trying to find out whether there were flights. And if there were, they could be canceled at any minute. There were no communications. I mean, you don't have to be diplomatic about this and you don't have to mention any names. But was Durko any use at all?
So it was exceptionally difficult to get hold of people. I mean, I, up to this point, have still not received communication back from the South African embassy in Germany. Even the citizen in distress emergency line, you call it, and it just says, this number does not exist.
Oh.
Durko, I think there was a single spokesperson for the whole of Germany who ended getting it back to me, but communication was spotty here and there. And also, if you ask for clarification or communication on anything, you get very short, terse, please stop sending me emails, which is difficult when you're stuck far away.
That's not acceptable. And you know what? You can be as diplomatic as you like. I don't have to be. These are South African citizens. This is what people pay tax for, so that if they're stuck in some country, their government will help them out.
Yeah.
It's appalling that this had to happen to you. So, okay, while you're there, you don't know when you're going to get back. You don't know how you're going to get back.
Correct.
What do you do in the meantime? You don't have endless amounts of money. Where do you stay? How do you survive?
Yeah, I think it's each to their own. I was lucky enough that we had some tendrils of people far in the distance. So I ended up staying with distant friends of family that I'd never met before, but were kind enough to let me into their homes. But a lot of people were forced to simply keep paying money or trying to find people who would take them in for free. And that's one of the places where I think community came in a really big way, where South Africans started banding together all over the world and helping one another out in places where the government wasn't stepping in and giving us information. And this network essentially became a means of survival for many, where accommodation was offered and information about how these processes work got figured out from the ground up as well.
Jeez, so you have to rely on the goodwill of other people.
Absolutely.
Ugh, how much did the flight eventually cost you?
It was a 17,000 Rand flight, one way, with SAA. We essentially got just over a week's notice in order to pay for it. And even then, when we did pay for it, it took huge delays in order to get the e-ticket from SAA. I actually only got the e-ticket 2 days before my flight, and then still had to get transport through to the city that we were flying from. And after that, obviously as well, with a technical delay on Friday, when we were left, the 39 of us stranded in Frankfurt, SAA essentially said, this is a state flight, we're not responsible, please look after yourselves if and when until we get a flight for you back home. So that became an exceptional thing on top of it as well.
Were there people left behind?
Yeah, 39 of us were left in Frankfurt after the flight on Saturday. There were 2 repatriation flights on Saturday, and we essentially, after being seated on a plane on Friday, were not allowed to fly home on Saturday afternoon.
You've got to be joking.
No.
This must be like the levels of anxiety must go through the roof.
Yeah, it's massive. I mean, firstly, on Friday, we were on the seat. The plane got delayed by 6 hours, and then we were told to disembark, which is a stressful enough thing when you're stuck on there.
Oh.
Then you get to the airport with all these buses on Saturday morning, and you see the queues starting to not move, and you see people starting to be turned away, and some people are going through. There's people who are like breaking down into tears because they've got funerals they need to go back to, and family that's been really ill, and that's the reason they've spent this money to get home. And you're just getting stuck and left behind. And then when the airline that was meant to be responsible for you is a state-run airline and kind of a representation of your country, literally put their hands up and it's like, we can't even help you stuck in the expensive city that you're in. Write your name and email address on the scrap of paper and we'll get in touch whenever we can.
Oh my God. What a horrible scenario.
It was what it was, Gareth.
Did you break down? Did you cry? You must have been pretty upset. I know I would be.
I was upset, but luckily what happens to me is that I go into organizational mode. So I got everybody's numbers and email addresses. I essentially created a WhatsApp group and from there became the coordinator between all 39 and SAA and DIRCO. I spent 11 hours with SAA on Sunday and essentially got in everybody's details that was needed from the rest of the group in order to get us home. And I think just that like fire of like, this is a problem, we got to make this happen is probably one of the only reasons I didn't end up breaking down.
My God, I'm sorry. What a horrible situation for the people responsible, because there are people who are meant to be responsible for situations like this to leave you guys in, and so many like you. It's just unacceptable. I'm glad that you are safe. I'm glad that you seem to have found a way through this despite the disaster that you've had to deal with.
Yeah.
So what's on the horizon? Because you do have a business that you got to run. What's happened to that?
Luckily, I have a very good business partner who can help. Our employees have been fortunate enough to go remote. There are challenges along the way. For example, we started going into the office to give everybody devices so that they could work from home, and found out that our office had been broken into during lockdown and that all our gear was gone. And again, it's things like that where you're really far away from home, you can't get in touch. The police aren't helping at home, the government isn't helping you far away, and it becomes a breakdown across the board. But it's running smoothly for now. We've got
Oh my God. Well, listen, small mercies, right?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, Jamie. What a horrible what a nasty experience for you from top to bottom. You are one of the bravest people, and I hope that nothing horrible happens to you for the rest of this year, because this is more than enough. This is your share for the next 10 years. In fact, you should have a free ride.
That would be great if you could organize that.
You know what? I'll do my best. Jesus, I'm glad you're okay.
Thank you.
Is everybody else back?
Yeah, we managed to get all 39 on the flight, and we are all now in quarantine in Cape Town. So that was interesting. We ended up being allowed to fly with KLM, which was fascinating because all external airlines had been banned from flying back into South Africa at this point. But SAA managed to organize a flight back for us with KLM, and now we're here. So, yeah.
Good stuff. Thank you for talking to us this morning.